All right, Madam City Clerk, whenever you're good? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 13th, 2020 meeting of the Moorhead City Council. It's approximately 5:32 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please provide a roll call for us? Thank you.
Shelley Dahlquist.
Here.
Sarah Watson-Curry.
Here.
Shelley Carlson.
Here.
Heidi Durand. Deb White.
Here.
Larry Seljevold.
Here.
Chuck Hendrickson.
Here.
Steve Lindos.
Here.
In council, I have City Attorney John Shockley, Acting City Manager Dan Molly, myself, and then Mayor Jonathan Judd.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. If you can please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I am Mayor Jonathan Judd. The Moorhead City Council is holding its regularly scheduled meeting using virtual meeting technology under an emergency declaration due to COVID-19. I am in the City Council chambers along with the Acting City Manager, the City Attorney, and the City Clerk. Council members are attending remotely. Any public comment received prior to this meeting will be read as a part of the record during the applicable agenda item. The public may participate during the meeting by calling 218-299-5001. Public input will be taken by a staff member and provided to me to read during the meeting. Excuse me. Or you may request that your call be bridged to the virtual WebEx meeting and speak directly during a public hearings or citizens addressing the council agenda item. Again, the public comment line is 218-299-5001. If there's not an answer, please leave your message or callback number, and a member of city staff will get back to you as soon as possible. Then we'll move on to item number 3, which are the agenda amendments. I will ask either City Clerk or Acting City Manager, are there any amendments to tonight's agenda?
No.
Okay, then we'll move on to number 4. The consent.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Councilmember Watson Curry asked that, let's see here,
Item 15.
15 be pulled from consent on the appointment of election judges.
Okay, so there's item number 15 is coming off consent. Are there any other items or any other matters that are coming off consent or any other additional amendments to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, then we'll move on to number 4, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Steve Lindos moves approval.
Second, Carlson.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
Watson Curry.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Dahlquist.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Seljevold.
Yes.
Lindos.
Yes.
Hendrickson.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Durand. You missed me.
Sorry, I didn't get, during roll call, I didn't hear you. Sorry about that.
So for the record, I'm sorry, go Go ahead.
I'm here and I also vote yes.
Let the record reflect, Councilmember Duran is present. All right, motion carries. Then we'll move on to item 5, recognitions, presentations. I guess one thing I think we did find out just a few moments ago, 5A, the swearing in ceremony is off of the agenda for this evening per a call to Chief Dyson. So I'm assuming that's going to come at a later date, which then we will move on to item 5B, 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and Audit Presentation. Acting City Manager Molly.
Mayor and City Council, so tonight we have the city audit and 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Our Finance Director, Carla McCall, is on the line, along with our auditors from CLA, and so I'll turn that over to Ms. McCall.
Hi, I'm not sure if I'm doing this quite right tonight. First time here on this meeting agenda, but here I am, and we're going to get going. We have had, the city of Moorhead has been using Eide Bailey as our auditor for over 25 years. And so last year we did a request for proposals for new audit firms, and we selected Clifton Larson Allen to do the city's audit. And there were a lot of different challenges with the audit this year due to the COVID-19 related pandemic and the stay-at-home order. So we did a lot of remote work, but we made it through. We had several telephone conversations, but got everything done. So we're going to go ahead, and we have Michelle Hoffman, who is here tonight from Clifton Larson Allen, to present what they have found, and then we will have any questions after the presentation. So Michelle, if you are available, go ahead with your presentation, please.
I am. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and I will try and share my screen as well so you can see my presentation. Give me just a second to get that going. Whoops. All right, hopefully everyone can see the presentation. You can give me a nod. Thank you so much for having me here today. As Carla mentioned, my name is Michelle Hoffman. I'm a principal with CLA. And we were definitely very excited to work with the city of Moorhead. As Carla mentioned, this is the first year that we've been working with the city, so very excited. We did manage to come out in January briefly, but then as she mentioned, the rest of the audit kind of turned remote. So you know, as it was the first year, definitely some challenges, but I was also a little bummed that we didn't get to come out there during the audit. So definitely, hopefully next year. But I want to start out too by also thanking the finance staff, certainly Carla, Ann, and Joel. You know, they put a lot of work into it as well. So you know, they're definitely to be thanked for helping us out, as you know, as it was a little bit of a different process this year. So I definitely wanted to thank them on our behalf. And just a quick summary here, the audit team, myself was the principal on the audit, and we did have, John was a manager, and Lance was our senior associate heading up the audit. Then we had a couple other folks filling in the audit team as well, as you can see there. As far as the audit results, we are issuing an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements for December 31st, 2019. This is the main reason that you need to hire an audit firm, is to get an opinion on your financials. An unmodified opinion is the best opinion we can give. If we felt we couldn't complete the audit, we were missing information, anything like that, we would have to modify it in some capacity or even potentially disclaim it. But we are issuing an unmodified or clean opinion on the city's financial statement. As part of the audit, we also look at internal controls over financial reporting. We take a look at all those kind of areas, transactions, balances, all the things that go into the financial statements, both at year end and throughout the year, and make sure that there's proper controls in place, that segregation of duties, that there's multiple checks, there's reviews, there's more than one person that is really involved in any given transaction. We do have two items that we are reporting. One is related to the segregation of duties. I think there was some shifting around of personnel in the last couple of years, and that resulted in really the payroll function can be essentially controlled by one individual. So we did want to kind of bring that to your attention, that, and I know especially with the new software potentially coming, the city's definitely going to take a look at that and make sure they have that adequate sort of check and balance in place. The other item is we did identify a few prior period adjustments, and these are actually items that we found that appeared to be incorrect on the prior year financial statements. And they were large enough that rather than kind of flow them through this year, because it would really skew the comparison of prior year to the current year, we wanted to restate that beginning fund balance or beginning net position to show what it should have been at the beginning of the year. And anytime you have to do that, then we have to include that in our material weaknesses for just those kind of beginning balances having some variances and maybe incorrect amounts. As far as any other items, if we had any what we would call significant deficiencies, which maybe wouldn't quite rise to the level of material weakness, we would also report those to you. We don't have anything to note there. Another thing that we look at is Minnesota's legal compliance. Every year, the Office of the State Auditor publishes a pretty lengthy checklist that encompasses kind of a variety of areas that we have to look at. And it's not very uncommon to have one or two items pop up with regards to these checklists. So we do have just 3 items to note there. One was with regard to timing of just a debt report that's submitted to the county. Another was some detailed contract language that has to be included in contracts that when you're entering into a contract with a contractor or other entity. And then the third item is the required designation by the council for, you have to designate someone to have the authority to make electronic funds transfers. And I believe at least 2, if not 3 of those have already been resolved and already been taken care of by the finance team. As you probably are aware, you have a single audit every year, and this is really referring to the audit of your federal programs, since you get a fair amount of federal funds. And you have several large programs. The highway planning and construction is usually the largest program the city of Moorhead has. And that was the program that we did test this year. And we would test that against various federal compliance requirements, making sure that the city is in compliance with all kinds of various reporting and how the funds are being spent, things like that. And we'd also look at internal controls. And if we had any items to note with regard to either of those, we'd be reporting those to you today, and definitely happy to report that we don't have any items there. So single audit came out clean. Some additional required communications to you is governance. We would have potentially had a new accounting policy, GASB 84, but GASB decided anything that was going to go into effect this year, they kind of delayed for a year or 2 because of everything going on. So that one's getting delayed. And we do also want to make sure that we communicate to you, there are some estimates that go into the financial statements just by nature. The estimate of the city's liability for pensions has a lot of assumptions in it, how long the capital assets are going to last, things like that. So just want to make sure we communicate to you, there are some estimates built into the financial statements. And then if we had any difficulties in performing the audit, disagreements with management, anything like that, we would also then be required to report that to you. Definitely don't have anything to report there. And we do have one item that that is an uncorrected misstatement that in the past, the city has never recorded inventory when it comes to, the city garage fund. And I believe the sanitation is the other fund. And then the amounts aren't super large. And so, but looking forward to next year, then I think Carl's working on some procedures to get those on the books. So they're not material to the financial statements, but just an item that we are passing on reporting this year. All right, getting into some financial results now. Starting with the general fund. So here we're kind of a 5-year look back, so you can see some trends over the last 5 years. We have the basically unrestricted fund balance, so anything that falls into that assigned or unassigned category. Then we have total expenditures for the general fund and total revenue going back over the last 5 years. As you can see, the last 5 years, expenditures have exceeded revenues in the general fund for each of the last 5 years. And if we were just to look at that, the general fund would potentially have a decrease in fund balance, but it's kind of boosted up by transfers in every year from the enterprise funds, and that was to the tune of about 8.6 million, mostly from the electric fund, but also from several other funds. As you can see there, too, revenues were 1.7 million over budget, mostly in the charges for service category, and I know that was largely in engineering services was a big one there. Expenditures were about 2% under budget. You can see some items listed there. And then our unassigned, for 2019, our kind of unassigned or assigned as a percentage of expenditures is sitting right at that 62%, as you can see, and it was 61% last year. The city's policy is to aim at keeping that above 60%. So definitely within and above the city's policy. Whoop. There we go. And going back to that kind of fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, if you looked at it like how long could our fund balance last if something happened where we really weren't getting any revenue in for a variety of reasons, that's about 7.4 months, which is 62% of the year. So that's kind of what you think worst case scenario. With cities, especially since you do get those two big influxes of tax revenue, the goal is certainly usually to keep it above 50% so you can kind of have enough in the reserve to make it to the that next tax payment just in case of an emergency. More general fund financials. Here we have revenue again, looking out over the last 5 years and kind of broken down. Certainly we have the total revenue in 2019 of about 20 million. And then we broke it down into the main 5 categories by color, you can see. As far as the kind of breakout of revenue, pretty similar from prior years. Certainly most of it is that intergovernmental revenue there in green. And then a few, for other categories, charges for services, other licenses and permits. Excuse me. So overall revenue ended at about $20 million, and that was actually an increase of about $3 million from the prior year. The main areas where that increase was about $800,000 in property taxes, about $800,000 additional state grant revenue, then about a $900,000 increase in charges for services, as I mentioned on the previous slide, which is really in those engineering fees. And now same graph, but now we're looking at general fund expenditures. So again, I'm going to kind of look at the 5-year trend here, see how the breakout's pretty similar. Expenditures were up to almost $27.5 million in 2019. That was up about $2 million from the prior year. Police was the biggest area that was up about $700,000. Admin was up about $400,000, and public works was up about $300,000. All right, moving on to the city's enterprise funds. So this is the electric and water funds, which fall under the Public Service Commission, as you know. And so this is looking at, again, the last 5 years, the operating revenue, operating expenses, and then kind of our net operating income. Certainly 2018 and 19 were very similar to each other, and really almost all 5 years on here are quite similar. You can see that operating income ticked down just a little bit in 2019. But in operating revenue and expenses kind of each tick down just a slight amount to get to that operating income. But overall, pretty steady certainly from the prior year. About 15.4 million this year compared to about 16 million the last year, the operating income amount. All right, now we're looking at the wastewater fund operations here. Operating income is down slightly from last year. It's at about 1.75 million last year to 1.62 this year. Mostly, there was a large increase in personnel costs. Some of that can be related to pension expenses, which are a little bit out of your control. But some of that was related to increase in personnel costs. And actually, some of that would be related to some of the prior period restatements that I had talked about, as some of it had to do with prior year revenue. So down just a little bit, but overall, a slight decrease in net position, but still, very similar to the prior year and pretty strong operating results. Looking at the stormwater fund, we have kind of a similar story here. A slight decrease in revenue and expenses, and then that slight decrease in operating income. Excuse me. So this, again, some of this could be attributed to some of that prior period restatement that I mentioned. That revenue was slightly overstated in the prior year. So, we kind of corrected that beginning net position, but comparing actual revenue from prior year to this year would have that overstatement last year. So overall, it was a very small decrease anyway, but revenue is probably in reality about pretty similar to the prior year once you kind of take that impact into account. So ultimately, the stormwater fund did have a slight decrease in net position, but still ended at a very positive and strong ending net position amount. So certainly, in the past, there's been increases in net position. So unless it becomes an actual, year-over-year trend for many years, definitely nothing to necessarily worry about. Overall financial results, just a couple other items to note. The financial statements are going to, the city has prepared the comprehensive annual financial report for many years now. And that CAFR, as we call it, an acronym, will Spoke to Carla about submitting that to GFOA again to receive that financial award, and also financials submitted to the Office of the State Auditor. As far as kind of emerging GASBs, I mentioned GASB did put a little bit of pause this spring on what was coming up. But these are what we now the kind of revised timeline is for what's coming down the chute. Fiduciary activities would have been in effect this year in 2019, but it was put off by 1 year. So that just kind of reassesses how potential sort of agency fiduciary funds are assessed and how they're potentially reported or not reported in the city's CAFR. The other one coming not till 2022 now is one that might impact a lot of cities, leases. And GASB's redefining how they define a lease. It used to be a capital lease versus operating lease. And a lot of smaller leases that were only kind of a few years fell into that operating category, and payments were made as you go. Now they're saying anything longer than 1 year is considered a capital lease, meaning it will have to go on your books as a capital asset and a long-term liability. So if you have a lot of smaller leases that, like copiers would be something, maybe like vehicles are a big one where it might be a 3-year lease that in the past, it wasn't a capital asset, it wasn't a long-term liability. Those would all be considered now long-term liabilities that have to go on the books as well as the asset. So a lot of that kind of small equipment is what I would envision these leases being changed from operating to a capital lease. So again, the vehicles, other small equipment like a voting machine type of equipment you lease, or copy machines, or all kinds of things like that would potentially be things that now are going to have to go on the city's financials as a bunch of capital assets and then the related liability. That is not till 2022 though, but definitely depending on how many leases you have, something to start kind of considering how long it'll take to kind of inventory all of those. So those are the upcoming GASB issues, and that is about all I wanted to go over today. Certainly, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask about anything I went over or anything you've seen in the financial statement or other reports.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hoffman, for your work and your firm's work on this project. Also, thank you, Ms. McCall, City Finance Director, for your work in providing the information. Just so folks at home are aware, in looking through the document, apparently our staff has got awards for this work consistently for a number of years. So kudos also to the city staff in working to get a top-notch quality audit report. So that was good information to read. So with that, are there any questions for Ms. Hoffman or Ms. McCall regarding the audit report? All right. Hearing none, again, thank you, Ms. Hoffman, for you and your firm's work on this, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right, folks, then we move on to 5C, which is a report on the Moorhead Human Rights Commission listening sessions. And with us this evening is the Human Rights Commission Chair, Connie Odden. Are you there, Connie? I can see you, but I can't hear you if you're speaking. Can we hear? Oh, now you're unmuted.
Okay. Can you hear me, guys?
You're good. Thanks for being here.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. A series of community conversations centered around racism, racial equity, and policing and other compliance in Moorhead happened on Wednesday, July 1st, in 2 sessions. The first session was noon to 1, and the other one was 6 to 7. This was meant to open up the dialogue to address challenges past and present the town of Moorhead has faced, acknowledge plan for the moving forward in the journey of dismantling the systematic racism that's faced for our town's institutions, and provide an opportunity for community voice and concern to be heard and discussed. This was an open invitation. We invite everyone and we welcome everyone to watch, learn, and listen, to share their personal experiences. The purpose of those true story events was to help all of us in town more deeply understanding each other in a honest and human way from our hearts. And we are willing to continue having the safe space for our people to share their story. We have already received some complaints about the way we handle our last 2 sessions of community hearings. Some people said that they are not feeling comfortable to share their story, of course, in front of the officials. Of course, we're sorry to hear that, and we need them to feel safe. I had some people calling me and sharing their story, their personal story, and we had citizens thanking for the board for giving them this chance to share their story. So generally, we are grateful for our community partners who worked with us to develop this thoughtful and meaningful opportunity to dialogue. This conversation was again meant to engage our community members to have an interest in learning more about the cultural and time period surrounding this show. We just trying to build a relationship to engage, trust building, and recognize the trust building takes. And we know that it takes a lot of time. We talk about over-policing, chance to get community liaison, renter issues, and new businesses, all that stuff. And also, people prefer to talk to us because some people, like I mentioned, some people are saying, for example, if they harassed by police, they can't complain to the police. So looks like we are trying to make connection here where we can ask citizens to share their story to us, and we will share their story to the officials so that we can do the next step to fix the problem that we are facing as a community. We also have a very emotional caller, a resident from Moorhead, who we are still doing follow-up for her situation. That's all much we talk about the hearing sessions, the 2 sessions, but I want to take this opportunity also to thank for Moorhead Human Rights Commission, my members, and also including my vice chair. Of course, thanks to our kind city employees who, some of them canceled their vacation time to help us, and everyone who helped us this thing to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie, for that report. Also, thank you and Vice Chair Heather Keeler for facilitating that listening session, both of them, which did spur some really good conversation. It was good to hear the stories from the residents being shared about their experiences in our city. Does that provide or bring any questions up for any council members regarding the listening session? Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. And first, I wanted to thank Connie too, and Vice Chair Keeler, just for your work on putting this together. And I think you're right that it's an opportunity for dialogue, but it's really just a starting point. And I really appreciate that you said looking for other ways and other venues where people feel comfortable knowing that they have a safe space to speak. I was really impressed at just the breadth of the conversation, that it touched on a lot of different things. That we talked about things related to aspects of our city government, as well as K-12, higher ed. We touched on things related to housing, law enforcement. And so one of the things that that it made me think about is I appreciate that several of us, including you, Connie, and Councilmember Watson Curry and Dan Molly and Steve Moore, are working on the Moorhead Resilience Task Force, and that's that opportunity for, and Steve Lindas, Councilmember Lindas, are working on that Resilience Task Force, and it's an opportunity for us to work collaboratively, and a few of us are involved with the task force, their equity and governance subgroup. And that, I think that is an opportunity for us to really work together as a community to touch on those issues. And so I'm looking forward to taking the information that we have there to build on it in that community-wide collaboration. So again, thank you. And I think this is just the start of some good things that we can build on the work that we already have been doing and make Moorhead an even more welcoming and inclusive community. So thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Councilmember White, for your words. And I think definitely it was a great starting point, and hopefully we can turn these conversations into concrete action. So thank you for that. Any other council members have any comments to make or any questions for Mr. Iden while we have him here? All right. I think, Mr. Iden, thank you for being here tonight, for sharing, and we look forward to more conversations.
Councilmember Watson Curry had her hand up.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, I just saw her hand. Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Watson Curry.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
A lot to keep track of all the clicking you have to do. I know the Human Rights Commission has a meeting coming up this month. I believe it's the 17th.
15?
And I can't remember the date exactly. I think it's the 17th. But I wanted to echo what Mayor Judd is saying as far as taking information in and turning into concrete action. One of the things worth noting was some of the things reported, there was going to be a little bit of research to get back to the citizens too. I'm just curious if anyone knows of kind of the potential timeline for that or what that could look like. And Connie, it sounds like there's some future, like if citizens wanted to reach out more one-on-one and not in a public meeting sense, that's something that members are open to. So I guess two questions is if there was something somebody wanted to share and didn't feel comfortable in that public setting, where could they go? And then secondly, the information that was given, what sort of follow-up will that look like? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. I'm not sure, Connie, if you wanted to speak on that at all?
Most of people call us one-on-one sometimes when they're not feeling to share their story in the meetings. And why we are saying this is because we are wondering if we can create a group of people who are willing to share their story with the Human Rights Commission, with our members, but not in a public one, not in an open that everyone can come in. But yeah.
Councilmember Watson Curry, does that answer your questions?
I believe so. If anyone wants to address maybe the follow-up of the content that was shared, some is observation or sharing personal stories, but some things that there was responses looking, so I know staff were going to do a little research. I'm just curious where that's at.
Okay. Yeah, and I merely was there to listen, so I'm not sure where we're at as far, and maybe I'll defer to acting city manager. I do know that we did have members of law enforcement staff that were present. I'm not sure if we have like a concrete plan on, there were some, I guess, some aspects where there was a response, I think that's going to be made, but how do we facilitate getting that response to the individuals that have those questions? Or I'm not sure if that was something where we would funnel it through from the chief to you to the Human Rights Commission chair, or how does that work? That wasn't discussed, and I wasn't a part of that conversation, so.
Correct. So they were listening sessions. I know if there was any follow-up, the chief would have made that directly.
Okay.
I can certainly touch base with the folks that were on the line, at least from the staff, to see if there's anything that could be looped back here, but that was not part of the plan from staff.
Okay. And just so we're aware, because I guess we don't want to have people thinking that we're not responding, so as long as the chief is in direct communication with either Vice Chair Keeler or Chair Oden about getting those responses back. I think that's where Councilmember Watson Curry is asking. So, just so they're not hanging out there. So, again, I'm not sure who's going to facilitate that, but.
Sure, and I'll check in with staff member Josh Huffman, who staffs the Human Rights Commission, on any of that follow-up, considering it's their listening session.
Not a problem, thank you. And Councilmember White, your hand is up.
Just a response to that too, is that, yeah, the HRC hasn't met since the listening sessions, and so it's this Wednesday. And I know that that's part of the agenda, I believe, is, doing a follow-up or debriefing of the meetings, and I'm sure they'll talk about next steps too.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Oden while he's here? Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Oden, for your work. Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you, council members, for your comments.
Thank you for having me, and good night, everyone.
Take care. All right, folks, then it moves us to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from June 22nd's meeting. Are there any additions, corrections? I do have one. Under item number 6 in the minutes, the citizens addressing the council, Ms. Noelle Harden's name should be spelled Harden. Other than that, I did not see any other changes. Anything from council or staff?
Steve Lindos moves approval of minutes with corrections.
Soldiervold, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
Lindos,
Yes.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Seljevold,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
and Dahlquist.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 7, citizens addressing the council. Madam City Clerk, Acting City Manager Molly, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard tonight, either via electronic or phone?
I have none at this time.
None here.
None? All right. Thank you, folks. Now, I probably should inquire, council, I should ask you too, unless you've received any emails or any communication from residents that wish to be heard?
I'm not aware of any communications or emails that came to the city manager's office
Okay.
or to the mayor and council.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 9, which is a public hearing. There's a public hearing regarding the request of Kevin Bartram on behalf of 913 LLC for Renaissance Zone property tax exemption for a project located at 113 10th Street South with a parcel ID number of 58.575.0600. Is there a motion to take us into public hearing?
And so moved.
Second, Lindos.
I believe it was Hendrickson with the motion.
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson, Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Yes.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion carries. We're in public hearing. And to present will be,
We have Economic Development Administrator Amy Thorpe on the line, so thank you, Amy.
Hi, and good evening, Mayor and council members. You're used to seeing Derek in this role, and he sends his best to you all tonight. He's taking just a little bit of time with his family and will return later this week. Dan and I are filling in as the B team. Go Dan. Go me. So tonight's public hearing is a review of the Renaissance Zone application of 913 LLC, which is Kevin Bartram is the representative for that project. Unfortunately, Kevin has another obligation tonight as well and is not able to join us. But this is the phase 2 of the 913 lofts on Main Avenue and is located directly to the south of that existing apartment building. The application is for the construction of a new 3-story, 28-unit market rate apartment called Block 37 Flats. The building is designed to be scaled to the neighborhood and is walk-up entrances from the street. The parking for the residents is located is enclosed and is attached to the building's backside. The project continues to further the city's goals to create 500 new housing units in the next 5 years as established in May of 2018. To date, 162 new units have been added to downtown. 33 more units have been permitted and are under construction. And 101 units are anticipated to be permitted within the next year, which makes us approximately 60% towards obtaining that 500 units in 5 years. The city's Renaissance goals for this project include being an activity generator by bringing more residents and customers to the downtown business district, high quality housing, and urban transportation, or urban design, transportation with public transit being really close by, and infill by removing some really blighted properties to create one new project and ultimately increasing the city's tax base. Zoning is community mixed use MU3, which allows for a flexible approach to the land uses, which allows both residential and commercial components to it. The total project investment is estimated to be at $4.9 million, which equates to a cost per square foot of approximately of $177 per square foot. So in terms of the Renaissance Zone policy, that qualifies this project for a 15-year tax exemption term on the new building value. Land value remains taxable throughout the term. Just as a reminder, the first 5 years of the term is a 100% exemption, and the next 5 years is a 75% exemption, and the last 5 years is a 50% exemption. So the property tax base begins to increase after the first 5 years. Following project completion, staff may request to review the actual project cost to make sure that this level of incentive was obtained. The project will receive an exemption term based on that actual investment cost. If approved, the timeline for this project is to begin in August of this year with an estimated completion date of hopefully June of 2021. So with that, Dan and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have, and hopefully if we can't answer them tonight, we will get Kevin to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for your words. And for the record, there's never going to be any Moorhead staff that would be a B team, just so you know. No, I know you're joking, but hey, there's no B team here. So, Councilmember Dahlquist, your hand is up. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I noticed after going through Carla's report, you know, getting the habit of looking at numbers, I noticed that the cost of construction is at $4.9 million, and it also includes the site acquisition, which I assume would be the costs for the property. And so to get at the 4.9 to qualify for the 15 years at 177 per foot cost, and then the estimated value of the building afterwards is 2.7. We've done this in the past, and I did not pay attention to the numbers before, but I'm just wondering if we could perhaps do the tax abatement after the construction. I know it seems kind of difficult, but when they estimate such a high price to qualify for the 15 years and the actual estimated value of the building is quite a bit less, we're missing out on some of the taxes that the city could get. And so I don't want to change it for this project. I'm happy to have new, more apartments. I'm just thinking that maybe we should look at this, the rules that we have to qualify for the 15 years, the 10 years, and the 5 years. And I know I should have asked this earlier, because I know we had a property in February on First Avenue, and the numbers were very similar, and that the cost is almost double from what the value of the building would be. Do you know, Amy, anything about those numbers and how they arrive at those numbers?
The details of the numbers are probably for Kevin to relate to. I did look into myself, as you had mentioned, that site acquisition cost. And oftentimes the acquisition does cost more than the actual assessed value. And in this case, that $500 acquisition cost did come out pretty much to the penny because of the increase in, once a developer comes in and buys one property, oftentimes there's holdouts, and it does cost to acquire properties. The other properties or the other line items in those budget projections, we can certainly ask the developer to open up his books and show us how he got those numbers. And after the site is complete, and we look into that, if those numbers don't match, if it doesn't come up, to meet that 177, then he will get what he will slot into where he goes. If he doesn't make the 175, then he will get the 10 years rather than 15. You're not necessarily approving the term with this. He still is going to have to prove that. If that makes sense. Am I making sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And I'm glad to hear that. I would hate for the city to lose out on some of the tax that we would get. And I was concerned about that. That's the property. I know they pay the taxes on the property, of the land, and not on the building itself. And so that I was concerned that they were including the cost of the land in with the construction. And because if they didn't, then it would, of course, not qualify for the 15 years. And like I said, I'm happy that we are putting these apartments up. And I did do some research on the 913 property. It was very nice to see that, I thought maybe they were not affordable, but they also include almost all the utilities. So it does become affordable. So I like seeing that these apartments are actually affordable. So I'm happy to continue with this, I guess, but this is the first time I had seen it, and I know it's something that in the past we'd had very similar numbers, and so I just didn't notice it before, but I'm glad that we do take a look at it after the construction's completed. Thanks for clearing that up for me.
You bet. And I'd also like to let the council members know, I did talk to Kevin Bartram this afternoon, and he reported to me that the 913 apartments, and I do believe there was 45 units, are 100% rented at this point. So 0 vacancies in that first phase of the project. So obviously there is a need in that area.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. Mr. Molly, did you want to add something to that?
Certainly. Amy made the point that the fact that there is 0 vacancy in 913 shows that living in downtown Moorhead is very competitive. And that's what encourages more neighborhood revitalization like this, frankly. Another point I wanted to make to Council Member Dahlquist's question about the developer providing the cost breakdown. Very typically, Kevin Bartram is one who will estimate on a very conservative basis, frankly, and more likely and often the costs come in much higher than what are reported originally in the application such as this. So we certainly will and can check it on the back end.
Thank you, Mr. Molly. And we've got the 3 council members. We have Councilmember White, then Councilmember Lindos, and then Councilmember Watson Curry. So I'll pass it over to Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share a little more information and some observations from our discussion of this at EDA. And I have to say I was also really impressed by the way that Mr. Bartram put this proposal together. That I spoke with one of the homeowners in that neighborhood, and he had already been working with them and been in communication. And so when we, think about, we've talked about concerns about developments like this in older neighborhoods, and he seems to have been very thoughtful in terms of putting something together that blends in well and wouldn't adversely impact and really benefit the community. Even little things like, one of the things that I noticed on this is that while the building has balconies, they're only on the street sides. And so there is one side of the development that faces onto some residents, and there's no balconies on that side. I know that he was very open to talking about material and things that would blend in well with the neighborhood. And so I really appreciated that, and in particular, the fact that he'd already reached out to neighbors too. The one question I had, Amy, that I don't know if I can't remember if we got that answered, is whether or not he'll be putting in a fence. I know sometimes we'll require things like that on that west side of the property. That's the only part that then faces to a single family home and then a rental unit to the north of that. And if I was wondering if he will have a fence on that side of the building between that and the neighboring property. But otherwise, I think it's a great project, and I appreciate the thoughtful manner in which he put this together.
Thank you. I am not able to obviously answer that question today, but I will bring that up with Kevin, and I'm sure that he will add that if that's a good idea or needed. It's probably needed by zoning.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember Watts or Lindos, you were up next, and I see your hand is down. Did you have a question still?
Yeah, I just took my hand down faster.
Okay, just want to make sure. I saw you dropped at the bottom of the pile there, so.
And I could always go last too. So thank you, Mayor Judd. I guess this is more, I appreciate Councilmember White's question, because that actually answered some of my concerns or questions. And I really appreciate developers that essentially take a community-minded approach to the projects. One of my questions has to do just with, I'm always looking at different modes of transportation and connecting with the community. You already mentioned the connection with our great Metro COG system, or sorry, Metro transportation system. I don't see, but I think there could be opportunity for bicycles for interior storage. And so, I don't necessarily want to get nitty-gritty of picking apart, but I kind of put out there do we have bikes ability now?
Yeah,
that's my only question.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindos. I noticed that myself, that there isn't necessarily a bike storage outside. I'm sure that a bike rack is easy to accommodate, but there is the indoor covered parking facility where I'm sure that there would be an opportunity to put some bike storage area in there, if not just within the stall that is assigned to the unit,
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lindos. Councilmember Watson Curry, then Councilmember Seljevold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Amy, for the information presentation. I also appreciate the community-based development process that's been used here. One other just question to add is when we're integrating a multi-use building or multifamily home building in a neighborhood. I know there's been concerns or issues in other areas where there's been lighting that's created some light pollution in private spaces. I don't see anything in the administration. And I assume that's already being addressed, but that was just one thing that stood out as something to examine as integrated with existing homes.
Thank you, Councilmember. I will definitely add that to considerations for Mr. Bartram to consider and for planning to review when more complete plans come in.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. Councilmember Seljevold.
Yeah, Amy, a question for you is when we have development, a lot of times there's property acquisition, you mentioned that, and the bidding goes up. Is there any ways that we can prevent somebody grabbing properties, sitting on them, and then going with a developer and then having to buy property for a very inflated price just so they'll get a break in the Renaissance zone? I mean, that would be I guess being I want to say, I don't say a worst case scenario. I have more faith in people, but it's a possibility, I guess.
I'm not actually sure that I have an answer to that question. I don't really think it's probably possible for us to involve ourselves in that way. We wouldn't even know, right? Like, I believe Kevin's been working on getting these properties for, a couple years now. And so and then he comes to us with the project all put together. So, Dan, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, these are challenges. I mean, we have property maintenance codes and things like that, but other than that, these are private property owners that have the right to sell and own property as they wish.
Well, my question would be I'd hate to see a property get acquired for $200,000 and then 2 years later it goes for $450,000 because somebody is in cahoots with a developer or something like that. So just to get a more of a break. But I have more faith in people than that. But it's like just be on the guard, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Seljevold. Councilmember Watson Curry, your hand is still up. Did you have another question? Okay, just want to make sure. All right, no worries. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you folks for the conversation. With that, I will entertain a motion to take us out of public hearing. And again, Ms. Thorpe, thank you for being here tonight to present this proposal.
Thank you.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Lindos.
Second.
Got it, Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Yes.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindos.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are out of public hearing. And now on to 9A, which is the resolution to approve a Renaissance Zone property tax exemption for 913 LLC for multifamily redevelopment located at 113 10th Street South with the applicable property number from the public hearing.
Lindos moves approval.
Watson Curry, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Lindos,
Yes.
Seljevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson.
Aye. Motion carries. We move on to item number 10, economic development, which is a resolution to approve a credit level for the 2020 Border City Enterprise Zone Program. And who will be taking this one over?
Ms. Thorpe is presenting this.
Back again, Ms. Thorpe.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So this year marks the 36th year of the Moorhead Enterprise Zone program. Since its inception, the city of Moorhead has received over $17 million in enterprise zone allocations from the state of Minnesota. Various programs such as the Workers' Compensation Rebate Program, Housing with Health-Related Services credits, and Seed Capital Investment credits are funded through this allocation to assist local businesses in our competitive border city environment. In 2019 legislative session marked an important chapter for the Enterprise Zone program by receiving sustainable funding through an annual allocation of for the border cities. So beginning this year, this month actually, Moorhead will begin receiving $525,000 annually, allowing us to more effectively plan and budget. When meeting with businesses, Derek and I have often been asked how we can guarantee that these programs will continue in the future, and now we are able to make that assurance with a lot more confidence that the funds will be available now and in the future. And thanks to the support of the EDA's Business Retention and Expansion Program, we are connecting with as many businesses as possible to discover what, if anything, we can do to help business thrive in Moorhead, especially during and after this COVID-19 crisis that we're in. Historically, the Workers' Compensation Rebate Program has been the most widely used enterprise zone program, with 85% of the enterprise zone allocations having been expended on this program. It is a program that reduces the expense of workers' compensation for our existing businesses by rebating a portion of that back each year. We ask you to approve a credit level and program cap for businesses participating in this program. At the June 29th meeting of the Moorhead Economic Development Authority, the board unanimously recommended the increase the level to 25% of Minnesota workers' compensation expense with a capital with a program cap of $30,000. This increase is a 5% increase from last year and was recommended to help offset the hardships caused during the COVID-19 pandemic. At this new level, we would estimate dispersing approximately $365,000 in 2020. The balance remaining after the accounting for this disbursement and future disbursements, including job credits for health-related services and a reserve of fundings for a high-value prospect, the account balance would have approximately $775,000 for the 2021 program year. So tonight we request a resolution to set the credit levels and approve the 2020 Enterprise Zone program. So again, those credit levels went from 20% last year to 25% this year, and we raised the EDA has recommended raising the program cap from $25,000 per business to $30,000 per business. And with that, I would entertain any questions that you have regarding the program or any of the information found in the packet materials.
Thank you, Ms. Thorpe. Councilmember Hendrickson, I see your hand is up, and after you ask your question, I do have a question after you, so I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy, that's great news with the 25,000 to 30,000, especially in this COVID pandemic that we're going through. I have a quick question. It's permanent now, thanks to our state legislators, Benleen and Kent Eakin, correct?
That's
they
correct.
Fought for that. Okay, and I'm very happy that they fought for that and they got that. So that was really good work from our legislators on that. But my question is, has the unemployment reimbursement, has that gone up steadily every year, or is it leveled off? You said more people or more businesses are taking or applying for it, but how much has it gone up? Do you have that offhand? I was just curious.
This program is, the workers' compensation program just deals with workers' compensation expense. So I don't really have information readily available on unemployment, if that was your question, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Well, it's, how many businesses use that? Do you know? Or am I asking the wrong question?
Yeah, I send out over 200 applications and I get back about 111. You know, sometimes I get up to 130. And it really depends year in and year out. I'm not really sure what makes that decision for a business as to whether they're going to complete the application. It's actually a pretty simple process. So we are always in looking for ways to reach out to our businesses and let them know about the program, and reach out to sectors especially that have more workers' compensation, that we know that there's more of a gap there. You know, some sectors there isn't as much of a gap, like you know, an office worker paying for, you know, that type of an employee as versus a mechanic.
Okay, and like I said, thanks. It's a great program. I've been working with it for the last 6.5 years. So great program. It kind of levels the field with Fargo. So I appreciate that. So I appreciate your work on that, Amy, and Derek and the whole staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have a question. I do see Councilmember Carlson's hand up. I have one question for you, Ms. Thorpe. I noticed that, and you kind of touched base on this, that the outreach and what the staff has done to try to provide outreach to the businesses. And I was going to ask, is there a way to kind of streamline? I know that staff has done the best that it could with the, and I'm just quoting here, just so the public at home knows, with the notice in the official newspaper, communication with the tax accounts, and speaking to businesses who inquire, and the building permits. Is there a way to kind of promote this more, to kind of get the word out to folks that might even be looking at investing a business in our city?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Mayor. What I didn't include also is that we do have a page on our website that's dedicated to this, with a contact form where businesses can contact me directly with their information. And we will, we also advertise in our insights, not every quarter, but at least once per year. I'll put a blurb in our insights so that goes to every home and residents in Moorhead. And we do some advertising and whatnot on our city Facebook page and whatnot too. But I mean, there's always room to do more. I definitely agree with that.
Oh yeah, and that's not a problem. I mean, I think as innovative as we can be to get the word out, because I know that as a council, we need to be probably talking more actively about citizen engagement. So any way that we could be able to give some ideas on that, that would be great, just so we can get the word out and promote ourselves a lot stronger. With that, I'll pass over to Councilmember Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to move to approve the credit limit for the 2020 Border City Enterprise Zone Program.
This is Duran, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist?
Yes.
Watson Curry?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Seldgevold?
Aye.
Hendrickson?
Aye.
Lindas?
Yes.
Motion carries. Again, thank you, Ms. Thorpe, for being here this evening and promoting this very important initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Have a great evening.
You as well. Then, folks, for those at home, we are down to item number 15. And this is a matter that was pulled off consent, and this is considering a resolution for appointment of election judges for the August 11th, 2020 primary election. So, I believe the individual that wanted to pull this off? Or-
Councilmember Watson Curry.
Okay, Councilmember Watson Curry, if you want to speak on item number 15.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? I clicked on something incorrectly.
Better now. I think earlier was a little shaky, but now we can hear you better. Yep.
Okay. I just think anytime we have anything about an election on our agenda, it's a great moment to uplift it. It's a very important function of the city. So it's an opportunity for us to recognize the lineup we have for election judges. And I also think it's important in these times, I don't know how to refer to the current period, but in the time of COVID-19, that things will look a little different. I had talked with Christina about, our city clerk, Christina Rust, about a few things. And so I wanted to, take an opportunity to thank the people who've signed up to be election judges. I think it'd be worth just briefly reviewing what precautions for safety are being taken, both for the voters and for our election judges, and then talk about what other alternatives there are. Obviously, we don't want to have a rise in our caseload of COVID-19 in Clay County, and so social distancing, wearing masks, and frequent hand washing is important. I feel very confident with the precautions in place for our voters, but I just wanted to kind of walk through and talk through what sort of precautions we're taking for our election judges. As often, voting in the primary will take just a few minutes, but our election judges are there for a much longer period of time. So I just wanted to have a chance to illuminate those things and, provide a little education for us in the council and the community as far as what it'll look like and what other alternatives are there.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. I'm not sure, Madam City Clerk, Christina Rust.
Yeah. Thank you, council members, for bringing this up. And I think I really appreciate that we do sort of make sure that we are thanking the election judges. We currently have just over 100 people who have signed up to help with the election. It takes a tremendous burden off of us for those people to step up. So thank you for that. I also want to personally, you guys are so good about shout outs to people, and I sometimes maybe get too much credit for what I do. There are also two staff members, both Kelly Jenkins and Amy McDonald in our office, who help me, and the three of us, quite honestly, just nail it as a team. So I want to thank them personally. I do want to point out, if you are interested in serving as an election judge, we will absolutely still take anybody. We're just in the middle of training. All of the training is done online. You can visit the City of Moorhead website under the How Do I, and there's an election judge sign up there. You can also contact me at 218-299-5304. And Councilmember Watson Curry had kind of noted that how the election will be, how it will look, and how are we protecting our judges and our citizens. I actually just got an update from the Secretary of State this morning, and I kind of wanted to just give you some numbers. They have just recently procured all of our safety measures. So on Thursday of last week, I collected about 20,000 pens. So everyone will get their own pen. So just some numbers, and these are statewide. Please note that these are statewide. Election judge masks, which will be the N95 masks. The state has gotten 50,000 of those. Voter masks, those will be available if you don't have a mask and you would like to wear one. They got just about 228,000 masks. 8,000 gallon bottles of hand sanitizer, 6,000 hand sanitizer stands, and just over 8,200 spray bottles of disinfectant. So how it will look is when you come in, you will basically, we will have a station there where you can, for hand sanitizer, you will be given a pen, then you will go to, you'll be sent to a certain line. You will keep your pen, you will do your registration and be given your ballot at that time. You will then vote. We've just kind of condensed a little bit in terms of the person-to-person contact. And then you can either put your pen in a little bag and we'll clean those up later, or you may keep your pen. And if you have any questions on that, you can feel free to contact our office. The other thing that is going to look a little bit different is our healthcare facility voting. We actually will not be going in as election judges this year. Normally we do enter the healthcare facility voting, and we do all of that. We will actually be training staff to do that this year. So that looks a little different. And then I also wanted to just talk about, if you are interested in absentee voting, you can contact the Clay County Auditor's Office. They are closed to the public, but they are open by appointment. Or if you're looking to get an absentee ballot, you can always just call them and they mail everything out to you. And that number is 218-299-5006. And one of the shocking numbers that I shared with Councilmember Watson Curry as we were talking about this, so the update from the Secretary of State, just to sort of give you an idea of how people really are taking this and sort of changing how we do things. At some point in 2018, in all of the elections, the absentee ballot application requests sat at just over 21,000 people requested that and voted absentee. As of right now, in 2020, that number is at 350,000 statewide. So huge numbers of people utilizing the absentee voting, which is phenomenal to see. So again, I just want to shout out and thank everyone for their support during these elections coming up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the city clerk's office and we can get you information. And we are here to hopefully make these some great elections, even in the midst of a little bit of chaos. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Madam City Clerk, for your work in making sure that people are safe, our judges and the folks coming in to engage in their right to vote. So I know there's a lot to juggle, but we greatly appreciate it. Councilmember Watson Curry, does that answer any questions or any thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I think those numbers are really exciting as far as people utilizing the no excuse absentee voting. I think there will also be a bit of a learning curve for our primary and then our general election. One thing that stands out is there's some possibilities, or I guess to volley a question back to, is there a possibility airflow is something that can help with keeping spaces safe if you're there for an extended period of time. August 11th, that's a possibility to have doors open or fans going. Obviously in November, that's going to look different. So I'm hoping we get some guidance from the Secretary of State too, as far as responding as far as what worked really well and what if we have to take any sort of different precautions in November, because who knows what that might look like. So I don't know if we have a point to review and recap that, or if that is a possibility in some of the spaces that we have. I know we have a variety of locations for our polling sites, so I don't know if that is possible, eliminate some of those touch points and then also creating fresh air for our election judges. So I guess that's my last question/comment. I'll mute myself.
Yeah, so we did, we actually just kind of started conversations about that in terms of airflow and looking into fans bringing outside air in, kind of in one way, out the other. The only problem that we kind of run into is with some of these polling locations, you're actually kind of going into the building a little bit further than you would. So just think of City Hall, for example. Where would you even put a fan that's gonna keep air movement. So that is something, though, that was brought up by election judges, and we're looking into that, whether it's renting fans or purchasing fans, just to kind of keep air circulating, if nothing else. So it is something that just kind of came onto our radar just last week. So it is something we'll look into. In regards to November, honestly, your guess is as good as ours. At this point, we find out things day to day. If it changes, and we sort of adjust everything at the last second, but yeah, as soon as they're giving us information, we're sort of changing things up and trying to make it work for everybody. So, and again, I mean, on the state level and the county level and the city level, our priority truly is keeping everyone safe, whether that's an election judge or a citizen coming in to vote. So that is always our number one priority.
And I think it goes without saying, but Madam City Clerk, you also are getting updates from the Secretary of State as these conditions change.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, we're informed through the county, and then the city is updated also.
Okay. Does that answer any other questions or thoughts you have, Councilmember Watson-Curry?
Yes, thank you so much. I'd be happy to move approval of this agenda item as well.
Okay.
Hendrickson, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk.
Dahlquist?
Yes.
Watson-Curry?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Seljevold?
Aye.
Hendrickson?
Aye.
Lindas?
Yes.
Motion carries. We move on to item number 16, which is the resolution to receive the City of Moorhead 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
This is Durand. I would move approval since we've already had the presentation earlier.
Dahlquist, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion, or Mr. Molly, have any comments to make?
Great motion, thank you.
All right, Madam City Clerk.
Watson-Curry?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Dahlquist? Dahlquist?
Yes.
Durand?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Hendrickson?
Aye.
Seljevold?
Aye.
Lindas?
Yes.
Motion
And
carries.
Carlson, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shelley. Councilmember Carlson.
We got, for the record, we have Councilmember Carlson.
She is a yes vote.
All right, we'll make sure. Motion carries. Item number 17, City Manager Recruitment, Next Steps. City Attorney Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Moorhead City Council. We have 3 items that I'd like to get council approval or action on tonight. Those 3 are first to authorize Amy from HR to go ahead and advertise the position description that the council had reviewed both internally at the city with city staff, and then also externally at different web pages like the League of Minnesota Cities, perhaps the North Dakota League of Cities, South Dakota League of Cities, and then whatever other websites that the city would normally advertise on. The second would be approval of a resolution to create a hiring committee. And the third would be to make an adjustment in the acting city manager's current salary based upon current city practices when a employee is serving in an acting role that's a higher pay grade. And I can go through each one individually. How would you like to take them up, Mayor? Or do you want me to go through all of them in depthly, or how do you want to handle that?
Council, unless there's Councilmember Hendrickson, let's see, your hand is up. Is that a new hand or an old hand?
Mr. Mayor, I apologize.
No, that's okay. Councilmember Carlson, I see your hand up, and I think that is a new hand.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. I would propose that we take all three of these at the same time, and I would make that motion.
This is Durand. I would second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion needed? Wait, I'm looking, I believe Councilmember Whites would like to vote separately. So I think we should have some discussion on that before we move forward with the vote. So I will hand it over to Councilmember White.
It's fine, I'll rescind my comment.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion by anyone? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk?
Dahlquist,
Yes.
Watson Curry,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Durand,
Yes.
White,
No,
Seljevold,
Aye.
Hendrickson,
Aye.
Lindas.
Yes.
Motion carries. We will move to Mayor and Council reports, item number 18. Any council members wish to report on any items for the good of the order? Or any committees or anything of that nature? I see Councilmember White, your hand is up. Councilmember Watson Curry.
thank you, Mayor. I just had two quick things I wanted to touch on. One related to the HRC meeting, not the listening sessions, but just our meeting that we had. And I mentioned that we do have another meeting coming up on Wednesday. But one thing that came out, I mentioned before that we have Sergeant Chris Martin is our liaison, and he shared some information with us about a really great program that the Moorhead Police are running right now. It's a grant-funded program, and I think some people may be familiar with it, but just in case you're not familiar with it, I wanted to let you know, they're now working with a mental health professional who not only provides mental health services to our law enforcement, but also is now beginning to ride along on some calls. And, it's, I know that we've brought up before that there's a growing need for that kind of support. And I really appreciate that our law enforcement has taken the initiative on that, but I wanted to call attention to it because this is a grant-funded program, which means currently when that grant goes away, there is no further support for it. And so, I would really encourage us to monitor that and keep communicating with them to see if this is something that we could continue to support in the future. The other thing is I had the opportunity to attend a webinar for the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and that was for the Moorhead Resilience Task Force, and I think there'll be more to come on that. I've shared some of the information with the mayor. Our acting city manager was able to be on part of that too, but just an exciting opportunity to collaborate. So those are the two things I wanted to bring attention from our last meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember, before moving on, are there any questions or comments for Councilmember White regarding her report? Hearing none, we'll go on to Councilmember Watson Curry and then Councilmember Lindas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A number of the committees I serve on have been not meeting at this point, so I don't have anything on that arena to report on. I did want to just relay that I was able to share a message from you at the Juneteenth celebration that was held on Saturday in Gooseberry Park, and that was an event and program led by, now I don't have it up in front of me, Creating a Diamond. So Ms. Destiny Holiday helped organize that, and there was a really great conversation, and so your words were much appreciated. There were also Councilmember Hendrickson and Dahlquist were there as well. And I apologize if there was someone else I had to leave early, unfortunately. The other thing I just wanted to uplift tonight is we approved something already on tonight's agenda. We approved a permit for an event at the Moorhead Youth Hockey Arena, which is a fundraising event for the Scott Tobalt Foundation. And so that kind of caught my attention because it was a gathering, and normally but in the before times, I wouldn't have thought twice about approving it. But it did raise some questions, just as we are still in an emergency status. And I want to thank Todd Beatty. I got to connect with him, learn a little bit more about the foundation and the good work that they do. And I really want to uplift that they have a strong preparedness plan that they're executing when they're convening people together. I also talked to Cheryl Sapp, who is an infectious disease nurse. I might have her title wrong, with Clay County Public Health. And again, I mentioned this already in the conversation about polling sites, but we do not have a vaccine. We want to make sure we keep our caseload down, and washing hands, providing hand sanitizer or access to hand washing stations, and providing that physical space are all really critical in managing things. So things will look different, stuff can happen, but it might look, this is their 17th event, so obviously it's gonna look different than it has the past 16 years. And so I just really want to convey my appreciation. And I think that that's an important example to uplift, that we should be so prepared to make sure that any participants and staff and any programming, their safety is thoroughly considered. So that is all I have. So thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Councilmember Watson Curry. And I think that it's great to hear the shout outs. I think our community needs to hear that. So thank you for bringing that up. Much appreciated. Are there any comments for Councilmember Watson Curry? Okay, thank you for your report. Councilmember Lindos.
Thank you, Mayor Judd. I wanted to give a shout out to actually the Moorhead Resilience Task Force. They have actually also hired, so Gabrielle Lomo, who's a city intern, but she's also now been hired as kind of the Moorhead Community Garden Coordinator as part and being paid through the Resilience Task Force. And so she started a Moorhead Fargo Community Garden Network, which is great because it's just tying together a whole bunch of information and putting it into place. And in particular, she started a Facebook page. Not everyone is on Facebook, so we'll try to figure out other ways to share. She's inviting in particular, so there's a couple growing together model gardens in Moorhead. One, the Grateful Garden at First Presbyterian Church, but there's also the Riverview Community Garden at 800 2nd Avenue North in Moorhead, which is by the Moorhead Public Housing. And that one in particular, it meets Wednesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. And if people are interested in joining, they can certainly show up on Wednesdays 2 o'clock and help garden. It's a great way to be outside and get exercise and watch things grow. And for more information, Gabrielle Lomo will be the person to contact about those efforts. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindos. And again, thank you for the shout out to Resilient Moorhead, and thank you, and Councilmember White, and I believe Councilmember Watson Curry. I get these things all juggled up, but thank you all for your active support and for being members of that entity that's doing great work in our city. So greatly appreciate that. Any items for Councilmember Lindos? Any questions or comments? Okay, Councilmember Watson Curry, I see your hand is up. Is that an old hand or a new hand? All right.
Old hand, my apologies.
No, that's all good. No worries. Just want to make sure everyone has a chance to be heard. Any other reports from council before I try to get through mine as briefly as possible? All right. All right, so I'll try to get through this. It's been 3 weeks, so there was a lot going on. Hopefully tonight, if the conversation is still going on, shout out to Chief Monroe, Good Shepherd, Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherds, now currently having a conversation and dialogue with Chief Monroe regarding mental health and law enforcement. Along with that, I'll send a shout out to Pastor Mary Simla Folkerts, who also hosted the initial conversation with myself a few weeks ago regarding dialogue with race in the community. Also, I was appointed to the executive committee for the Minnesota Mayors Together group. What this group is a group of mayors in the Twin Cities, as well as rural Minnesota, to bridge the divide when it comes to issues relating to those that affect our cities directly. There have been 2 meetings with that group, also resulting in a meeting with Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan last Friday afternoon to get a report on what is going on regarding the special session with the legislature. Hoping to get a report from that soon from the governor's office. Also talking about COVID-19 responses and how it is affecting our local communities. Also shout out again to the Human Rights Commission for the listening sessions. Also shout out to the FM Chamber regarding their eggs and issues regarding diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Had a chance to speak at that along with a few other panelists to discuss action steps regarding getting more inclusive work environments. Also shout out to Moorhead Business Association and their partners, as well as city staff for the July 4th event. Also to the Horizon Shores residents for allowing the collaboration to take place. Feedback has been overwhelmingly positive regarding that event. So again, shout out to folks for making sure that our residents have a July 4th event and fireworks to see. Also, no substantive reports from the FM diversion regarding updates. And also shout out to Senator Tina Smith. She sends her regards. She called on Saturday afternoon and just to check in and see how Moorhead is doing and our efforts with COVID-19, economic development, and a variety of other topics. I think that covers, that was pretty quick, 2 minutes. I time myself sometimes. I'm a long-winded Southerner. With that, I'll hand it over, unless anyone has any questions or comments regarding that, I'll hand it over to Acting City Manager Molly.
Thank you, Mayor. So, and thank you all for, I'm a couple weeks in now as Acting City Manager. Thank you for making this a pleasant first meeting. I do want to just say that recognize former city manager Chris Volkers. She left quite a wake for us to work in, frankly. I'm thinking about her good nature, her warmth, this unusually strong work ethic that really made her great to work with. And I expect that's a reflection of her genuine care for the public good and commitment to service. So she leaves Moorhead better off. And I enter the next couple months with gratitude and humility. I want you to know that. And we've set aside some priorities. So in the spirit of trying to work within some sort of margin of utility by which we can get things done, not hoping we can do everything, there's some boundaries. And so not going into my, rolling out all of my boundaries. I just wanted to let you know kind of where we're headed, at least in my head. The first is the budget. It's going to be a very challenging year, not just finishing this year, but the year coming up. And so we started meeting with department heads already, individual meetings and meeting as a group to figure out what finishing this next year under budget and rolling into next year with budget forecasts that aren't great, frankly. You will be hearing a lot more about that next month. In August, we'll be sharing a recommendation with you, giving you time to digest, talk about what some of the priorities are. And by the second meeting in September, we're going to be, we plan to present a preliminary budget for your approval, whereby we cannot go above the levy that is approved at that point. We can work through October and November, refining, and final budget approval in December. So that's what's coming up in regard to the budget. We have labor negotiations this fall with 5 unions, so that'll be happening. The COVID work, of course, whether it's related to our facilities, the public services that we have, the CARES Act funding that's coming into Moorhead to do great work in our own facilities, but also partner with businesses in Moorhead and community organizations. So you'll be hearing about that. We've put a little task force together that hopefully will be able to bring information to you within the next couple weeks. This is funding that needs $3.2 million in Moorhead, needs to be allocated and spent to address COVID issues by the end of the year. So we have a lot to do there. And that is, there's going to be a lot more soon. We just received the money from the state in the last week. So, let's see here. The election, we've talked about that quite a bit. What a year to have 3 elections. So we had the presidential primary a couple months ago. We've got the general primary coming up next month, and then the general election in November. And Christina Rust and her team and the election judges have been just an incredible job. I also want to say the polling locations, the people that are willing to host us, truly. All of them have stepped up to make this happen in the absence of universal voting by mail. And the equipment is all on order and ready to go. So that's one of the areas I feel really, really great about. So with that, that's where we're headed. And I just can't help but make an editorial comment about continuing our work around economic development and raising the share in which a commercial tax base can move us forward. I can't say how phenomenally important that work is in the coming years. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malley, for all the work that you're doing. We know that you're juggling a couple of duties right now, so it's greatly appreciated by council and the residents of the city. So, thank you. Before I pass it on, 4 more things, and I'll make it quick. For folks at home, please be sure to share the following items. Also, council, we have 3 positions. I think I mentioned this a while back. The M-State is hiring for a assistant director of equity and inclusion. The job was posted today. You can look that up on the M-State website. Number 2, pending school board approval, there will be a director of equity and inclusion being hired at the Moorhead Public School District that may be posted tonight if it is approved by the school board this evening. And number 3, please check out the county website. The West Juvenile Detention Center is also hiring for a director of equity and inclusion. And then number 4 is shout out to Roger Erickson, CEO of Farmstead Living, for his work in helping to have a new canine that was donated to the, is it Clay County, Mr. Malley, or is it conjunction with the Moorhead City Police?
The Moorhead Police Department,
Moorhead
very
Police
generous contribution.
Very generous contribution. So thank you to Roger Erickson from Farmstead Living for his generous donation. Now I'm done. And then we can move on to item number 20. There's no executive. I'm sorry, Madam City Clerk.
Sorry, just as you are talking about vacancies and open positions, the Human Rights Commission also has a vacancy for Ward 4. So we'll be sending out e-notification for that. If people would like to apply for that position, they can visit the City of Moorhead website.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. And I would encourage anyone on council that has knowledge of these vacancies, let's get them out. If we're talking about being more equitable and inclusive, this is a good place to get them out so people can see it on during our meetings. So, oh wait, and we're hiring for an IT person too, aren't we?
That is published, correct?
Okay, thank you. Now I think we're done. All right. No executive session. Any new business for the good of the order? Any citizens to address the council? Madam City Clerk, Acting City Manager. Any communications? No? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Linda so moves.
Watson Curry, second.
Motion's made and seconded. We don't need a roll call vote, do we, Madam City Clerk? We're good. Good night, Moorhead. Thank you.
Good night all.